Let's get right to our panel. Karen Finney is an MSNBC political analyst. Anna Marie Cox is a columnist for The Guardian. And Steve Kornacki is my colleague and one of the hosts of MSNBC's The Cycle. Welcome to all of you. Steve, we checked the website of one online gun supplier for the sort of rifle that was used by the individual on Friday. I think we have video of it, and they're almost completely sold out. Now, a new ABC Washington Post poll shows that most people believe Newtown is, quotes, indicative of broader problems in American society. So do you think this time things are different? The circumstances, the context this time for a conversation about gun control is different?
It is, and the pressure, I think, is going to be more intense in the days, weeks, and probably months following this on politicians to act. It's not just because of the horrific details of this, as awful and almost unprecedented as they are, but there's also sort of a trend here that I think it's 6 of the 12 worst mass shootings in U.S. history have happened since 2007. So there's this growing awareness of, wow, this is reaching, like, you know, serious proportions right now. And if you think back to
Steve, so we're happy to have multiple shootings in city like Chicago, multiple shootings in Atlanta, but it takes an absolute massacre for us to respond.
Yeah, I mean,
is that what you're saying?
It's unfortunate. I think the parallel, if you look at it this way, the last time there was serious gun control movement in this country was the early 1990s with the Brady bill, with the assault weapons ban. What the impetus was back then was soaring violent crime rates. You had, New York City had 2,000 murders a year. There was this, that was like the top national issue if you took a poll. What you're talking about in Chicago, New York, wherever it's playing out, it is horrible, but from a public opinion standpoint, because the violent crime rate has dropped, it took guns in a lot of ways out of the public debate. And so now it's these spectacular individual incidents and the growing number of them that's putting it back in the debate, and I think creating that pressure again that we last saw in the early 90s.
Very interesting. Karen, this was Mayor Michael Bloomberg today. Please take a listen to this.
This is not a partisan issue. This is just a bunch of people who I think are cowed by the NRA. And as I said yesterday, if you think the NRA has power, just remember their number one priority was to defeat Barack Obama. Last time I checked, he's going to be inaugurated again.
Karen, we called the NRA asking for a response to the Newtown tragedy, along with their thoughts about the need for more gun control. We spoke with a person there asking for a comment or a statement. We received nothing. Silence.
How shocking. How shocking that cowards would hide when asked the tough questions. I mean, look, I think, Mayor Bloomberg is right.
But these are the same cowards, Karen, who gave Mitt Romney over $800,000 during the presidential election, and they can't give us a comment today after that horrifying tragedy on Friday.
Well, because they know that what they are backing is shameful. But here's what's most important, I think, at this moment, Martin. I disagree with Steve to some degree that, yes, in the immediate aftermath, there are these cries for legislation and we have to take action. But I think it is incumbent on all of us to make sure that our elected leaders really follow through, that they don't get weak-kneed when the NRA quietly starts, to come calling. Instead of getting weak-kneed, think about the courage of those teachers who protected, gave their lives to protect their children. I mean, I think it's important that we keep the pressure on because we know the NRA. We know the games that they're going to play. We also need to keep the pressure on, I think, publicly to shame people out of this misinformation. The Mayor Bloomberg has been one of the, most vocal people that it's this mythology that the NRA somehow is, going to take you out if you don't do what they say. But don't forget also on the conservative side, there's this mythology that, President Obama is going to take away your guns if we sign a UN treaty on small arms, and that he's trying to foment violence in Mexico in order to get support for the assault weapons ban. And we have to put all of that aside and have a very serious conversation on what we know about human behavior when it comes to guns and how we curb gun violence, period. And we've got to all be on the same page that we need to curb gun violence, period.
Okay, Anna Marie, let me read you something from the New York Times in July of last year. It's about how the NRA watered down the bill Congress passed in the wake of the Virginia Tech shooting. I'm quoting, "As a condition of its support for the measure, the National Rifle Association extracted a concession, the inclusion of a mechanism for restoring firearms rights to those who lost them for mental health reasons." So the NRA considers it a disability not to be able to own a firearm, notwithstanding the fact that an individual may have serious psychiatric illness.
And we thought Obamacare was going to reform the mental health welfare state. Yeah, I think that the NRA is definitely on the losing side of history here. They may even be not just be on the losing side, but an actual villain. I've got to say, I think Karen is right. I'm really happy that Mayor Bloomberg pointed out that the NRA is really sort of a false front in a lot of ways. It doesn't have the power that people think it did. And I'm just sitting here thinking, first Grover Norquist, then the NRA. A lot of these bullies on the right are falling aside as people kind of learn to get angry about the right things. I don't know exactly what people were thinking when they responded to this survey saying they thought they think the massacre in Newtown was indicative of larger problems. It is indicative of larger problems, probably not necessarily the ones about video games and teenagers that they're thinking of, but rather, again, about massive gun violence in cities like Chicago that you mentioned, and also this inordinate power that's given to some of these groups on the right to control not just our national policy, but our national dialogue. I think the way that we talk about this, when people even use the term gun rights, as though that is something that exists, is a problem. That is not actually, the Second Amendment is not about gun rights. It is about a well-armed and well-regulated militia. And so we really need to just rethink how we talk about this, how we think about it, and I think we are on a first step here.
Okay. Karen Finney, Steve Kornacki and Anna Marie Cox, thank you both so much.